So I wanted to kind of show and kind of go through is Outlook integration, because I'm sure not all of us. Outlook integrations is one of those things where it doesn't seem like very many people actually use it to its full capabilities, and so I would always forget how it would or excuse me, how it would work. And then you also have some people that kind of take it to the extremes, and Mark has some horror stories with that he could share. Um, But so I wanted it to kind of run through the Outlook integration, show how it works a little bit, because every demo that we do, this is one of the kind of big selling points. Whether the customer uses the Outlook integration or not, it's a feature that they get access to if they want it without an additional cost if they're already a Microsoft partner. So that's kind of one of the big things there. The other thing is um, kind of just showcasing what you can and cannot, and what you can do within the integration, and kind of how it works inside of the CRM side of things. Because there are a couple gotchas and a couple things that I can kind of showcase as far as how the data is hierarchical and how it kind of rolls up to each other, so on and so forth. And then the other thing that I wanted to show is a little bit with the document automation toolkit. So it's come up a few times with some engagements that we've been working on, or kind of chasing. And so what Jack did is that um, Jack kind of set this up so that we have a test invoice or quote that it'll go scan the attached PDF, and then it'll create a quote inside of CRM. And this is hooked up inside of JT Demo. So I'll kind of go through this, and I'll also kind of showcase a little bit about what the model looks like, as well as what the actual app looks like too. So some kind of cool things that this is all associated to. And so I wanted to revisit that at the end. But before we get started, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email. I've actually been sending tons of emails in here because I forgot what Jack told me from an instruction standpoint as far as how this works, and then I figured it out. So you can see here I've sent a bunch of emails into from my JourneyTEAM email address into John Galt. And you can see all these are tracked. So I can come in here and go find an old one. Let's go do this one because this one's wrong. Can come in here, I can see that this is tracked to Dynamics. I can untrack this specific email, and and I can have this be manual. So sometimes what happens is that people don't realize is that as far as a lot of the tracking of emails into Dynamics, it's user configurable. Each user can set that up however they would like, right? So if you don't want to track anything, you don't have to, and you can configure that on your side. If you want to have it track anything that has an associated, like let's say lead account contact with that email address, you can set that up too as well. So I have the default enabled for John Galt, so it's going to track if it finds a matching contact for this email, it's going to associate this email to that contact. And so what this looks like inside of CRM, holy small. There we go. That's a little bit bigger. You can see here in the timeline, I got all these emails that I've sent in today. And I can open up these emails, I can see the details, and it actually gives me a rich text editor, which is really cool, right? So my footer comes in correct, and I guess that's a reminder to myself I actually need to change my footer because BTS is over. But I like the mountain, so I guess that's cool. So those are some things as far as how this looks. So if I choose not to track this email, I can choose not to track it. I can remove it, and it'll go and it'll sync with Dynamics, and it will remove that email, and or it will leave it as a suggestion to track. I can also use the Dynamics app, and I'm showing this inside of the online browser, but this also works inside of the Outlook client as well. But I can come into the D365 app, I can pin this, which is kind of cool. So this will refresh. So right now it's going to say, hey, we think that this is not tracked. It doesn't have a regarding set, and we think that it could be associated to this email. So I can choose to track this without regarding, which is a huge mistake. Like never ever suggest that your customers do that, because what will happen is that they'll track emails, but those emails will not be associated to any records, and it kind of just creates a mess. And it's just hard to dig those up. So I can I can choose to track this. So I can come in here. I can say I want this to be associated to. It's going to give me all my related records and recent records I've accessed directly from when I was in Dynamics. So I can say, hey, I want this to be set to my demo user. It's now tracked. I have the regarding set, and it's going to give me it's showing me the card view form, some information related to that contact inside of Dynamics. And you can see that I now have the track to the Dynamics button updated again. So that's really cool. Some other things is that you can configure this form where sometimes you have issues is sometimes customers want to configure this form on like a per user group or per user type scenario, and you can't do that. You can't sometimes they're like, well, I only want to show accounts I own in this card view grid, so on and so forth. And it's like, you can't. Um, you can do that, but it's standard for everybody, right? Like you don't get to see a different card view form than somebody else. So those are a couple gotchas that come up every once in a while, but it's generally not too big of a deal. It's just like, a minor inconvenience. And so some other things you can see, you have this little linked icon. So I got my recent opportunities here. I got some cases that I can associate this to. So I could come in here and I can click on this link button, and I can actually use that to change the regarding of this email. So this email, instead of being, it's going to show up on my contact, but I also want it to be associated to that opportunity. So what this looks like is if I go over here to, granted, I guess I kind of picked the wrong email, but if I come down here, oh, here it is, quote. So this is the one we tracked. So even though I changed the regarding, it's still showing up in the timeline for my contact, right? And then if I go to my opportunities and I go open up Everglade Tours, I'm going to see that email right here because I have associated it to this record, even though it is doing the hierarchy and rolling it up to the contact. So that can be really, that's really, really handy, because what you can do, especially when it comes at the account level, is that you can track your separate email conversations to different opportunities to make sure that the conversation history is nice and succinct and clear at the opportunity level, even though at the contact level you are seeing everything, right? And this also goes for the account level. So if I were to take this and roll this up to the account, I am going to see all the activities for the account here as well. So from the account, you can see all this data rolled up, which is really powerful, but it can get really noisy really fast. And so the intent is that, yeah, it literally is the single point of communication that you can see. And what's also kind of cool is they've added this right here. Is you can kind of come in here and you can kind of see what records these are associated to. It's like, oh, this is associated to this opportunity. I can click on that opportunity, go directly there. I got demo Gorton, so on and so forth. So there's some quality of life improvements that they've made to the timeline and as far as how the Outlook integration works, which is pretty slick. So that's a little bit as far as how that works. And some other things that I wanted to show is, well, let's say I want this email to be associated to a new record. So I can obviously come in here and I can I'll just create a new opportunity. There's a couple things that are a little disappointing with this. I wish it would automatically set these, but at least it kind of remembers, from the related record standpoint, it's easy to set it up, but I wish it would just default it. New op 14. And I can come in here, set this information that I need. So I'm going to save and close that. And it'll create that new opportunity. I can view that record. Now, this is kind of cool because one thing that's also a selling point is that some of the competitors, right, when you are using email integrations, is that they don't have the same look and feel as the main application. But you can see here, this looks just like CRM. This is the same styling, the same Fluent UI. It just looks like the mobile version of the application. So that's really cool. So I can come in here, I can set this, and then you also have this option up at the top because as the end user, right? I'm the salesperson. I just got this email and I created this opportunity. I may or may not want this email to be associated with that opportunity, right? Maybe I'm making an opportunity, but it's not really related to this email. It's just like, oh crap, I remember I need to make that opportunity real quick. So for something else not related to my thought at hand. So you could stub records together, you can tie them all together, or you could choose not to. So in this case, what's really cool is that in the past, I don't remember if this button's always been a thing, or at least it's never been like up front and center. But it used to kind of be a pain if you were to create the record and then you'd have to go back and set the regarding. And now I can just be like, hey, you know what? I want this email associated here. I just click the button and I'm done. I don't have anything. I don't need to worry about anything else. So what this looks like, if I go over here to the account, let's go refresh my account list. And let's go find my opportunity real quick. New app for team. If I open this up, I am now going to see that emails associated to this opportunity. And it'd be the same from Brandon as well. So that's really cool. And it just doesn't take very long to do it, right? Like it's a lot more intuitive than it's been in the past. And then you can also drill into any of these records too. So this can be pretty powerful. The other thing as you're drilling through these records, which is also cool, is that you can still come in here and you got the set recording button up at the top of any of these records that you're drilling into or drilling around. So you can kind of use dynamics as dynamics. You don't worry about it. Find what you need, boom, set it, and you're good to go. If you hit the ellipses, you can see that I still get all of my command bar options in here. And a new one too is that let's say you're kind of working within Outlook and then you want to actually go open up Dynamics in a full browser. You can click View in Dynamics and that'll open it up into a new tab. And then you can pick up where you left off. All right, there's my account. I'm cooking with fire now. It defaulted me to a weird form, but that's okay. And I'm right back where I was. So that can be pretty cool. Oops. And then as far as some of the other stuff that you can do, let me see here. You can actually go to your dashboard. I don't really know what it does. You still have your recent and your pinned records, so that can be pretty handy. You still have your global search, so you can search for something. So if I were to search demo, I can come in here and see all of this stuff, and eventually it'll probably show my Brandon Demo Gorton contact. And then the other thing that you can do is, obviously you got quick creates for additional record types. But as far as how all this works, like it's pretty slick. So if I were to have, well, let me just show one more thing and then I'll kind of do the document.
And Brandon, a good use case for this is that it does sync to your Outlook calendar, your appointments. If you've got that set up, so most people will want to create appointments in Outlook, not in CRM, because it's a pain in CRM. So
correct.
I know a lot of people use like Teams now, but there's a whole user base that still loves Outlook, and this is a big selling point for Microsoft. This nice integration like this. Other people have it, but not this good, obviously, because Microsoft owns them both.
Yep. So speaking of which, if they did want to use the appointments, one thing is when you're setting this up, you will get a notification that this is literally going to send them an appointment. And it's going to put it on their calendar, right? So this isn't just like internal data. You're going to get a notification that, hey, just so you know, this appointment's actually going out. And what you can do too is you can convert this appointment into a Teams meeting just by using this toggle. So this is not only just going to be an appointment, it's going to be a Teams meeting. And I can kind of set the details here. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to save and close that. And then I also wanted to show one other thing.
It's almost like they jammed the whole application into this little bright pane, which is
Yep.
kind of crazy. The hardest thing I find is trying to remember which menu takes me where, but you really could almost do a lot of your work from that
Yep.
D365 add-in.
You really can. It kind of blows people's minds because every once in a while we hear of people doing crazy stuff where they're downloading the emails and putting them in folders.
And for reference to the old client was a COM add-in for Outlook, and it was terrible and it broke a lot and it was a huge maintenance nightmare. This thing is not like that. So
yeah. So what I'll show, I just got a reminder that that appointment just showed up for me on my calendar. So I'll show that here in a second. I'm just going to do a task 2 because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But you know, they used to be Outlook tasks, and Outlook tasks really are tasks and to do now. So this is what it looks like. And so you can sync your task as you're making tasks inside of Dynamics to do. Oops, I just clicked the button. And look at this. I can see all of these. I can see all these tasks that I created inside of Dynamics. They're being tracked here, and I can see that they're being tracked. So that can be really, really cool. And then I also got some AI generated tasks that were from notes from the Teams phone call integration. So that's pretty cool. So I got a bunch of stuff in here. So that can be really, I mean, this is just an example as far how everything's connected from an appointment and task standpoint. And so if I come over here to my calendar, I can see here that I got that test appointment. Let's edit it. I can see it came to me. This is the time, and it is just a Teams meeting. So you could work entirely from, you know, all these apps are so interconnected, but you really could do everything you need to do or want to do inside of Dynamics. Might take a couple extra steps, but you can do it. So that's pretty powerful. So that's kind of as far as, and you could kind of have that set up as far as, you know, you want it to sync appointments and tasks or not, that kind of stuff. But that kind of is the round robin as far as how the hierarchy works and how some of these additional feature sets work. They're all just tied to that Outlook integration. Any questions?
Yeah. Is there a way to? I had a business requirement from Progressive that they wanted the appointment entity to have like a field that they could leave notes on the appointment, but not have it send emails to the attendees. I didn't think we could do that. I was just wondering if that's still a thing. I'm kind of vague now on the details, so bad question. Sorry.
No, I think that's still fine. So one of the keys is that, I mean, you could make, well, one thing I suppose you could do is that instead of setting the who's a part of the meeting as far as required attendees, if you had another option field to where you're not going to send, you know, this email's not going out to your external users, that'd be kind of an interesting option, but I guess that would work. A little janky, but it would work.
Okay.
So
yeah, I'd probably use a phone call for that because this is gonna send it out.
mm-hmm. Yep,
That's the
that's a
thing.
good.
They were like, hey, I'm the appointments for them, and I'm going on site to meet with the client or the account that I'm working with. And then, but they wanted to like capture details about the appointment, right? And so
Mhm.
users were just starting to put it in the description field, and then all of a sudden, boom, here comes the notes to everyone that you invited, and maybe they put something they weren't supposed to put in there, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this person is disqualified because they didn't laugh at any of my jokes. Those are things I would put in there.
Well,
So,
and well, there's other things called Outlook, the filters, so you can tell it which fields to sync down to Outlook.
correct.
I'm trying to remember if you turned off description, if that would work, or sometimes people would create a second field for that. But yeah, because
okay.
this is the app for Outlook, but then here's where you can tell it what records to sync down. to your Outlook. So per table, if you click synchronized fields, you can choose appointments, and then like at Red Rock, they want the contact data only going down to Outlook. They don't want people making changes or have it sync up. You can control that direction, but you can't change the field mappings. And so you could maybe disable the description from syncing to your appointment, but I would test all that stuff.
And it looks
If
like
you click on the blue arrow on body,
oh, it's the body one.
yeah, so double click that. Yeah, maybe you can't change that one, but some of these you can change and make in one directional.
Yeah, I think we ended up doing a separate field if I remember right, but I remember it being the sync between, like, it is hard to edit some of these. Like some of these you can't change at all. Appointment forms, you're not supposed to be able to customize at all.
And I've got a
One
case
time.
open with Microsoft right now, not all the contacts synced down, and the customer's like, why can't I change the field mappings? This is all locked down, aside from changing the direction and then being able to say, I don't want my appointments to sync.
That's it. Yeah.
You are pretty constrained.
Yeah. There can only be one appointment form, I think, as well. You can't have multiple forms like per user and stuff like that.
And if you want to change the system filters, you need to use XRM Toolbox or write C# code to do it.
Okay.
But you can do user filters. It's like an advanced find query. Well, keep going, Brandon. I could.
Well, thank you.
This is a whole separate.
Move on. Let's move on.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff. Because I rarely come in here. I'm sure many of us haven't looked at like the mappings of the filter criteria in many moons.
Yes.
But
I can hold.
But you can get to all these just from your personal settings. So, and this is where you would also, from a personal setting standpoint, come in here and you could kind of identify what you want to track, right? Track email message response to a Dynamics email, messages only from leads, contacts, accounts, records that are email enabled, no email messages, that kind of stuff. So sometimes what happens is you can't set this standard for your entire environment, which can be a little annoying. Now, you can use the XRM Toolbox tool to go and update all of everybody's email settings, but they can still change them. So that is a kind of a follow-up question that does come up every once in a while, where they only want them, like the intention is all of the end users are doing specifically what IT wants them to do, which would be, one of these options, something like that.
Usually the best practice is they track their own, right? Instead of tracking all or none.
Correct.
And then the other one is right there below where you are, the automatically create contacts. I've seen where that's on and it distracts people.
Yep. This can sometimes cause some problems where they're tracking all the emails and then they have this enabled and it is just creating a ton of data inside of the system. So that is another good gotcha to take a look at. So you can also show, and this one's kind of a newer-ish feature, but like you can see emails that you haven't tracked yet inside of the timeline. So you can kind of enable this to where you can see emails that you haven't tracked in timeline for those conversations. So you have a chance to track them from the dynamic side of things. So that can be kind of cool, where it's just a little reminder. So go ahead, Mike.
Trying to find my mute button. One other thing on the track and regarding. So just because you hit track doesn't mean that there is a regarding. You have to set the regarding. Setting the regarding is actually associating that email record to that record type where there's an opportunity, account, contact, wherever. Otherwise, if you just hit track, that email gets created in Dynamics and just sits in the email table. So oftentimes the email table will be bloated because there are just these random emails that are automatically being tracked, but aren't actually set regarding.
Yep. A very, very good point. I'm sure maybe Jonathan and Kelly are members that when we went live with KSBJ, they were tracking all of their emails, but they weren't setting the regarding on any emails. And so we went back and helped them. I'm not sure who did the work, but we went back and went and set the regarding on like 100 emails to tie all their data together. So I've had to do that a handful of times, but it's always a good point to reiterate is tracking doesn't equal setting the regarding. So great comment. Thanks, Mike. All right. So the next thing that I wanted to show is the document automation toolkit. So let me close this for a second. So you can see here, I sent all these emails. I'm like quote to process, quote to process. So I had to get the right term. So to is capitalized. And then I also needed to make sure that the record didn't already exist inside of Dynamics. So what you can do, and this comes up every once in a while, right? In our case, I'm doing quotes, but you could also think of this as invoices or purchase orders or RFPs or whatever that our customers are doing, where they might be a B2B business working with distributors and they're getting invoiced for all those distributors, and they want to capture all of that data inside of their CRM system, and it's all manual right now. So what they can do is they can use the document automation toolkit to where it will scrub these emails based on whatever criteria you want. In this case, it's incoming emails where the subject is quote to process and it has an attachment. So you can make this pretty specific, right? Where you're looking for certain domains on the email addresses to identify different distributors. So you can use different document AI models to capture their data, right? Because the different businesses are going to have different templates and formats. And so what I can do is I can send the email to my to John with my test quote, and the test quote looks like this. Right, pretty simple. It's for an opportunity. Here's my customer, here's my address, and I got 2 product line items associated to this as well. So that's what it looks like. And so it's going to scrub this, and then it's going to create a quote inside a CRM for this attachment and then set it up correctly. So I come over here, let me go refresh because I might have deleted that one. There's my Everglade tour. So I did this at 11:12. And so I can open up this quote and I can see that it is, I mean, and this isn't all completely fully baked, right? Like we're not setting the opportunity, but we're setting the JourneyTEAM customer, and I can come in here and I can see that I have the 2 products, right? I got my Nike, I got my Air Jordans. I don't got any line items here, but I got my quantities 1 and 7. And it's actually associating this. Well, actually, it's not. It's doing the right product for Nike Air Jordans, and so you can do this to where it's associating the actual products, and you could fill this in. So it can be pretty powerful, but this is kind of just what we have stubbed in. And so the nice thing about this is that this wasn't done with any intervention. This is just it scrubbed a document in an email, and it did all this work. And this was just set up in like, 3 to 4 hours of configuration too. So pretty cool. So what this looks like behind the scenes. So there's a couple things. So you'll get a confirmation email here as well. So, hey, your document was processed, your flow ran successfully, so on and so forth. But it'll give you a link to the attachment. Oh, look at that. Oh, that's cool. And then what it looks like behind the scenes, if I come over here, is that this is the model. So you can get to the models. If you're just make.perhaps.com, you got the AI builder. You can come here to models, and you can see that I was able to go to the demo quote document processing AI model, and I can see the percentage of completeness for all of these data points. So you can see they're all 99%, which is as close to perfect as you can get in this type of implementation. You can see here that description is at 80%. And so I can click on these and I can kind of drill into this a little bit, but it doesn't really, it just kind of goes to the same field. But I can see my data points here. I can see the table that these are associated to. So we're doing all the quote. And overview, you could see examples of these as well. So, and then I also got the data source there, and then the overall accuracy. So that's all really cool. This is kind of at a high level, right? It's not giving me individual run perspectives or anything like that. And I can also edit the model, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. So if I go over to the app, so oddly enough, this doesn't show up all the time in the make.harvest.com, but there should be a document automation link here. I had to actually go to this document automation toolkit page and click the link here to get to it. So I think that that's kind of a miss. Microsoft's got to fix that. But you can see here that it has, there are pre-generated templates that you can do. And then you can also see there's some additional feature sets that you can see that they're trying to do here. Like, hey, you got receipts, identity documents, imports from SharePoint. Like you can tell that they're putting some effort into this. And so if you open the application, this is what the application looks like. And so what this is you can come in here, I'll refresh this, make sure I have the most recent data, is that it scrubbed that email and it identified based on my model here. So if I come in here and click on my model selection, invoice processing model. So this is what I have selected. Field mappings aren't showing up here exactly, but I'll just go ahead and go through the motion. So I got this selected. I'm going to click next. I can see it's got my data points mapped here. And I can also come in here and I got my tables, and it kind of puts it in a kind of hideous format, but it's got it. I can save this, and then my model is updated. And so what I can then do is I can see that I got some manual review, and then I got some images that were validated. So from my email, it found all this stuff. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on this test quote PDF first. So what it identified is that there was no service address. Like I probably don't have these ones in red mapped. And so basically we're saying, hey, there's absolutely no match. Like, what are we doing? And we can see here that it's, 67% sure that that's the field. And what's interesting is these numbers are lower than what we have on the other page, but you can kind of see the mapping. We can review this document. We can review the tables that it's, kind of what it's going to be creating, and we can go to the next document. We can see here, this is the same one, so it's got the same stuff. So I'm just gonna, I believe this one well, I thought maybe one was doing the quote, one was doing the quote lines. But we can come in here, we can click validate. So that's good. Why doesn't this one have a validate button? I missed it. I'm just gonna say validate, cool. Now I'm gonna come over here and it's gonna say, hey, we can't process this. I'm like, all right, cool, I don't care about that one. It's test quote. Want it to go to the other image because there we go. And you can see that it's from the model, it's pulling in all of this stuff. And you could kind of, you don't need to validate any of this because you don't care. And you can also delete those documents as well. So that's kind of how that works. So this is an app that Microsoft provides. And so some of the use cases here that we've run into is a good example. Now, there's similar functionality of this that can be associated to, obviously, we're like taking the CRM approach, right? Like, hey, this is related to sales, right? These are invoices. There are add-ons in BC that do something very similar. I forget what that product is called. Might be Continua. If Nevin is still here, he might know, or if anybody else does. But there's a, do you know, Mark? I saw you
For
unmuted.
expenses?
Yeah, just for like the document scanning for invoices.
I know Continue is an add-on for expenses. I don't know if it's for this part though.
Okay. All right. So so there's a lot of in the BC add-on one works really well, but sometimes not all your users are going to be in BC. And you also might not have a CRM application, right? So this really could be extended and leveraged in a number of ways, and you could kind of still have people to where they're reviewing these, and it's infinitely better than what they're doing just completely manually. So that's kind of some of the use cases is that it, you know, if BC is involved, BC has a good tool that might be used instead of this. But there is a licensing cost. If your implementation has CRM, this might make sense kind of punching it into invoices and quotes, etc. And if you have neither, right, like you might just need, this might be sufficient and you're just bringing data into your system, into a little Power Apps implementation. So those are kind of some of the use cases. But that's kind of the round robin as far as how this works in the little bit of effort that we've put into it. So what questions are there? All right. This is hooked up in JT demo. So I can put some instructions if anybody would like to go play with this and kind of take a look at the configuration, so on and so forth. Some things that I'd eventually like to do in JT demo is have a couple different quote and invoice documents so that we could demo and show people that when the time comes and if they have a good use case for it. And other than that, that's kind of it.